On a full moon night, a simple seaside village reveals the beauty of the night. A newly graduated doctor has just moved to work at the community hospital by the sea, and he has just finished moving his belongings into a small house that offers a sea view just by opening the door. He stood on the beach in front of his room, admiring the night view stretched out before him. It had been a long time since he had seen such a beautiful and natural scene. He slowly strolled around the beach near his accommodation before deciding to go back inside to rest, as he was tired from the journey and moving into the new place, while he was reading reports to prepare for starting his new job tomorrow. Suddenly, a light shone from the middle of the sea into his room window. He looked out the window and was surprised. Some light from the middle of the sea was shining directly into his room. He remembered well that when he walked around the accommodation earlier in the evening, he hadn't seen this light before. As a doctor, he never forgot to carry his first aid kit. He then stepped down from the house, heading towards the beach. In front of him, he saw an unexpected event. The sea had dried up, revealing an ancient stone path and rows of rocks illuminated by the moonlight. The path stretched all the way to a mysterious island in the distance. The young doctor walked along the ancient stone path that stretched out into the sea. He saw several old decaying fishing boats stranded among the rocks lining both sides of the path. What exactly are these events and these shipwrecks? Curiosity built up in his mind as he headed towards the island, with the light shining from the middle of the sea. Finally, he arrived at the island. It seemed eerily quiet here. He felt that something was hidden, something he couldn't explain. He continued his journey until he reached a small path leading him to a quiet village. Suddenly, he stopped. In front of him was the image of a young girl sitting in front of a house. Beside her, a grey cat lay quietly. He decided to walk closer to the house. The girl looked up at him with eyes full of empathy. "Curious," she said softly. "Are you a doctor?" the girl asked. "My cat seems unwell. It hasn't eaten anything for 3 days," she said softly, while stroking the fur of the cat lying still on her lap. "It's just a little bloated. Nothing to worry about. Let it rest for a while, and it should get better." The young doctor smiled slightly while examining the cat. After he finished checking the cat, his eyes glanced at a lighthouse not far away. The light from the top of the lighthouse slowly rotated. "The light I saw from the window comes from here, doesn't it?" he thought to himself. He sat down near the girl and asked gently. His mind was still full of questions. He wanted to know for sure where this place was. "I'm the new doctor who just moved to the hospital over there on the coast. What's your name?" "My name is Moana. I live here with my grandpa, grandma, and this cat. Not many people come here. It's rare for someone to walk here like you, doctor," she said, while gently petting her cat. "Thank you very much for helping to treat my cat. It's almost high tide now. You should hurry back before the path gets flooded." Moana spoke with a voice and eyes full of concern. Before parting, the young doctor turned to Moana and said, "If anyone falls ill, I want you to gather the patients for me. I will return on the next full moon night to treat them." She nodded in agreement. After bidding farewell to Moana, he hurriedly set off and had to quicken his pace to make it before the seawater flooded the ancient stone path. After returning to his accommodation, he couldn't help but question in his mind whether what he experienced was a dream or reality. Everything seemed too strange to explain. Excited by the story he had just encountered, he couldn't sleep, so he got up to grab a notebook and began jotting everything down, line by line, without hesitation, along with sketches of the island, the underwater stone path, and various things encountered tonight, to confirm to himself that these things really happened, not just a dream. The next morning, he returned to work at the hospital as usual, determined to tell a nurse he was close to and trusted about what happened last night. He told the whole story to the nurse attentively and then took out his notebook to show her the sketches he had recorded. The nurse stood still for a moment, nodded slightly, and replied that she had actually heard about this vaguely before, but never knew much detail. One thing she could remember was that it might be related to the Forbidden Night, an ancient legend of this town. The villagers told him that there is a long-standing legend here about the Forbidden Night, which coincides with the full moon night, a day when no one is allowed to go out to sea. The legend says that anyone who goes out to sea on a full moon night will never return, and no one knows where they disappear to. Several months later, the full moon night arrived once more. He sat waiting by the window in his hospital room, his eyes fixed on the sea in front of him, eagerly anticipating something. Suddenly, a small light from the lighthouse appeared in the middle of the sea and shone into his room again, as if it were calling him. He quickly grabbed his equipment bag and ran out of the room, heading towards the beach without hesitation. It wasn't long before he arrived at this mysterious island, and as soon as he stepped into the village, he encountered a sight he had never imagined before. In front of him was the image of Moana among the villagers, who were all waiting together, their eyes filled with hope as they awaited the doctor, who had promised to return. The doctor slowly examined the villagers, who had been waiting for him all along. Everyone was happy to see him return while he received treatment from the doctor they trusted. The young doctor thought to himself that it seemed the villagers here hadn't received proper treatment for quite some time. Even though he knew his limitations, he was determined to treat everyone to the best of his ability, with the heart of a doctor that never changed. After spending a long, exhausting time treating the villagers continuously, he finally sat down to rest in front of the house with Moana. The two sat quietly talking. He turned to look at Moana before softly asking, "Could you tell me about the history of this island?" That's what he's always wanted to know since the first day he arrived here. Moana said that the ancient stone path that the doctor walked on appears only on nights of the full moon, and the largest in the year. Nights like this occur only once or twice a year. On that night, the sea level drops unusually low, revealing a stone path stretching from the shore to the island. But because of this drastic drop in water level, fishing boats that go out at night often get swept onto the rocks and are damaged. As for the crew, they disappeared. That's why it became a legend, the Forbidden Night. Moana paused for a moment, but I have a secret to tell you. She turned to meet the doctor's eyes and spoke softly. "Do you know, doctor, everyone on this island, we are the ones who once disappeared from the shipwrecks that happened on those forbidden nights. We didn't disappear, we just didn't want to go back. We chose to stay here because on this island, we found peace and happiness like never before." What Moana described is probably the super full moon phenomenon, or the night when the moon is closest to the earth in the year. It affects the earth's gravitational pull and the changes in sea levels. That might be the origin of the forbidden night that the villagers talk about. Finally, he got the answer. The legend that was once obscure became clearer. Moreover, he understood why these people didn't want to go back, because this peaceful island was their home. A quiet and beautiful island. After hearing the whole story, the water started to rise and the ancient stone path was about to disappear soon. "Hurry back, doctor, before it's too late," Moana warned with a serious tone. Before parting, Moana gave the doctor a glowing shell as a token of gratitude, saying that when the night of the fullest moon of the year approaches, this shell will emit light to guide you back here again. After he received that special shell, he bid farewell to Moana and the villagers, then hurriedly set off back immediately. He had to quicken his pace before the seawater flooded the ancient stone path until it disappeared. After returning from that island, the doctor felt fulfilled. He had seen the smiles of the people, used his knowledge to help, and that filled his heart with happiness. He recorded everything in detail, with the hope that on the next full moon night, he would return again. And this is the whole story I wanted to tell you, Dr. Joe, the hospital director, said after finishing his story, while handing something to Dr. Joe, a new graduate doctor who had just moved here to work. Dr. Joe glanced at the photo hanging on the wall, and at that moment, he immediately knew that all the amazing stories that the director told, it is his own story. Even though he is not sure if what he heard is true, the story greatly inspired Dr. Joe. It is one of the most beautiful and impressive legends he has ever heard. And that night, while Dr. Joe was lying in his room, the shell given by the director began to glow slowly. He opened his eyes in shock and excitement before quickly getting up to look at it. The full moon night arrived once again. Dr. Joe sat by the window in his room, his eyes fixed on the sea before him. In his hand was a dimly glowing shell. He knew that the time had come, the time for him to set out on his journey. Dr. Joe stood hesitantly for a moment before deciding to grab the first aid kit and hurry to the beach, walking along the ancient stone path that gradually appeared under the full moonlight. Dr. Joe was heading to that island on the legendary night that had been told. The journey on the forbidden night was about to begin again.